Co-host, yes sir. Make co-host and make co-host. How's it going, guys? Bad audio today. I apologize, Shusei. How is everyone doing? You guys doing good? Hello, hello. Good evening. Good evening. I'm good. How are you guys? No bad audio. Audio is good. All right, that's good to know. Just fine. Yeah, I don't have my mic today, but MacBook Pro audio. All right, let's start already. Give me like 2 minutes. We'll start at 8:03 for sure. Um, Campus location still up in the air. We'll see. Pune apparently is on the charts. People love Pune for some reason. We are going to write code today. Mostly only backend, I think. If we get the time, front end. But I have to call it a little early today for my cousin's wedding. So we'll call it around 9:30, 9:45-ish. It's an implementation class. We asked for it yesterday. We haven't yet used TypeScript in a React project. We can't directly use it in a React project. Like there's very minimal TypeScript you can use in a React project unless you have a backend. Then it becomes, you need types on the front end as well. And if you really want to, if you really need very strict types on front end and backend, you should read about TRPC. We're not covering in this cohort. It's rarely used, but now there's this company in Sydney that's hiring with us. 2 people got in there from Super 30. They are very heavy on the T3 stack. One of the implementations or one of the necessary things there being TRPC. We're not doing TRPC today. But if you want to, read about why TRPC is a good stack. If you want really strict typing of front end and back end, then you use TRPC. Although it's like complicates your code base a little too much, like slightly. All right. Have you guys seen this documentary? We were watching this at Super 30 yesterday. Pretty good if you guys want to see it. It's how FTX went down. Let me close that. Let me share the slides with everyone. These are the slides for today. All right, that's okay. That's fine. Building a second brain app. Now there are interesting bits here. And standard CRUD bits. We'll build the CRUD bits. Yesterday I was talking to someone and they had done everything we have done. MongoDB, for the database and Express for the backend, TypeScript. But boy, were they confused in a very weird error. So I think a bunch of you don't even understand routes very well right now. Basically, this is what he said yesterday. He was trying to build a course selling application. Similar e-commerce course selling application. वहां पे एक purchase endpoint था, a /purchase endpoint. यहाँ पे when a user purchases a course in a course selling application, what you do is you do a db dot whatever, mongoose dot purchase dot insert or create. You create a purchase entry. And sorry, what was that? You do a purchase entry. You also do there was one important thing I asked them to do, which was to have an inventory. कि यार इतने ही courses available हैं. Have an inventory of courses, similar to an e-commerce website, जहां पे you will only have 5 t-shirts. You can't sell more than 6 t-shirts. This is a slightly complicated problem. So he did this. He said, purchase तो मैं यहाँ से करा दूंगा. Inventory मैं कम यहाँ से नहीं करूंगा. If there are 5 courses available right now, he said, I shouldn't do mongoose.course.update the amount of seats that are available in this course. Seats -1. इसने कहा ये यहाँ थोड़ी करूंगा. If I do this over here, then this should be done in an admin endpoint. He said कि ये तो एक अलग endpoint बनाना चाहिए. I said why? He said because this is a user accessible endpoint. अगर हमने user को -1 करने का तरीका दे दिया, then user can also increase the inventory. Something like this he said. So his very basic knowledge about how endpoints work was also messed up. कि हाँ, purchase endpoint अगर आप hit कर रहे हो, hitting the purchase endpoint, the user only has access to hit it. They can't change the code inside the route. If this is a app.post/purchase endpoint, तो यूजर इसको हिट जरूर कर सकता है. यूजर कैन हिट दिस एंड पॉइंट. यूजर कांट मॉडिफाई योर कोड इनसाइड हियर. दे कांट डू अ mongoose.course.update seats equal to seats +1. तो इतनी फंडामेंटल नॉलेज भी उनको नहीं आ रही थी. एंड इज pretty senior, like he does DSA a lot. Dev अभी वो सीख रहे हैं. So that is why I thought कि थोड़ी basic CRUD app बना ले, even though this isn't basic. What we are building is a second brain. Lot of applications like this have come up. There's this company that's hiring with us. One engineer they've hired, one engineer is on trial. They're building this You might have heard of this engineer called, I forgot his name, but he's also building something similar. He's a very young engineer, 19 years old, Indian, but like moved to the US. I forgot his name. Someone will tell me in comments. He's also building an application. Uska naam bhi main bhul gaya. Anyone knows what that name is? The name of the app is name of the guy is this young guy, Dharvaj Shah, exactly that guy. So he's building something similar. I don't think he's working on it anymore. I saw the code; it's been stale for a while. But you know, very common application to build. What is the application? It is a second brain. Second brain का मतलब क्या होता है कि you can sign up over here. Once you sign up, you see a UI like this. कि यार these are my important links जो मैं भूल जाता हूँ. I don't know how many of you maintain a WhatsApp history, but whenever I have an interesting link, here I have to come back to this. Whenever I see a thumbnail, okay, this thumbnail looks very catchy, I want to use this in a future video, I paste it in my myself chat. That myself chat is a bunch of things I need to remember. So this is similar. यार कुछ अगर बाद में याद करना है ना, something, a second brain where you can put a bunch of these links. Just come to this website, sign up, and you know, I don't see the other screenshot, but you know, there's a button called add content. When you click on it, you can paste your Twitter thread that might be very interesting, GitHub repo that might be very interesting, a Notion doc that might be very interesting. It will maintain that history of links for you. That is one. Very similar to, you know, a note taking application. Rather than you writing notes though, you are just putting links that you can eventually, you know, get the metadata of के इस link में इस चीज की बात हो रही थी, इस link में इस चीज की बात हो रही थी. That is part one. That is what we are building. You can share your brain with other people. So people can see, अच्छा, what all is Harkirat, you know, interested in. What all does Harkirat के brain में क्या क्या exist करता है, second brain में क्या क्या exist करता है. That is what the application is. I was looking at the websites that I thought कि हम बनाएंगे. सारी boring सी थी यार, मतलब to do applications, something like that. So I thought let's build something slightly more complicated. First part is a website where people can come and put links. Second part, जो हम नहीं कर रहे हैं, but I'm happy to do, is AI related. People need to be able to query this. कि कई बार ऐसा होता है कि यार ये tweet में, you know, someone was talking about something interesting. I need to find that tweet. तो मैं लगा रहता हूँ WhatsApp में कि where is that tweet? I can just ask कि can you find me the tweet where Darshil Shah, which is, you know, the founder of HubSpot, उसका नाम भी दर्शिल ही है, ऐसा कुछ, was talking about XYZ. It will go through this, you know, and find the relevant tweet for me. Second brain will have multiple thousands of links. 2 साल पुराने भी links होंगे. This will become very big. So, you know, you should be able to query on it. Here you use vector databases. You use embeddings if you've heard of it. Very common pipeline to, you know, search through a bunch of existing data that you have. So I'm happy to talk about it. कि वो कैसे चलता है. If needed, we can build a video on it. Even though it's not CRUD one stack, it's a little bit of AI, but like nothing too complicated there. ठीक है? This is the website. Person can come, add content, paste a few links. यार ये मेरे links हैं. They will appear in their second brain. Other person will come. They can maintain their own second brain. You can share this brain with other people. And yeah, there is this button to add more content or add more, you know, links. उसके ऊपर भी एक model आ जाएगा. Model में you'll paste something. We'll build the backend today. Let's see if we can reach the front end. We'll try to build the front end as well if need be. We'll build it in TypeScript though. So no JavaScript today. And there are a few things when you're using Express in TypeScript that change compared to JavaScript. JavaScript में जब हम Express लिख रहे थे, we did a few things. TypeScript में things change. So we'll understand what that is without any further ado. It's a project class. तो जो project करते रहे, this is your class, and you know, build it. मैं बैठा हूँ. I will also build it साथ में. But you should try to build it yourself. I think we have enough knowledge by now. जिसने React नहीं भी किया, if you were not present for the past 5 weeks, still it is fine. Hopefully you can create an Express app. You can connect it to MongoDB. That is step one. Only thing is we have to do it in TypeScript and not JavaScript. ठीक है? Let me give a brief. अगर ऐसी ऐप बनानी है, what endpoints do you need? User should be able to sign up. User should be able to sign in. ये तो bare minimum है. Look at all of this and then we'll do a poll. How many of you can create this couple होगा? मैं दिखा देता हूँ एक बार कि you have a sign up endpoint where user will send a username and password. And we have some constraints. The username needs to be 3 to 10 letters. Password needs to be 8 to 20 letters. Should have at least one uppercase, one lowercase, one special character, one number, things like these. Response will be status code of 200 if everything is fine, user signed up. 411 if the input is incorrect. अगर बंदे ने password छोटा दे दिया, does not have a special character, then 411. 403 if the user with that username already exists. अगर उस username का कोई और बंदा है, return a 403. And 500 अगर कुछ server crash कर जाता है for whatever reason, then a 500 status code. That is the first endpoint. Can you guess what the sign-in endpoint looks like? I have not shared the slides, have I? We have. Sign-in endpoint is username, password though. You get back a JWT, a JSON Web Token. I'm not explaining what this is. We have explained it 10 times now. So I hope you know what a JSON Web Token is. Why is it used in the authentication process? You get back a 403, which means wrong email or password, or a 500, which means the server has crashed or whatever. There is some error over there. But if you get a 200 status code, you also get back a token. Okay, this is what your JWT is. Add new content, an endpoint /API/v1/content, जहां पे you can send things like what is the type of this document. Notion doc, a normal text document. Is it a tweet? Is it a YouTube video? Is it a random link other than that? That is the type. The URL to it, twitter.com/xyz, the title, and the tags. Now we have tags in this. This will again be complicated. Tags are dynamic, by which I mean whenever someone comes to your website and creates a new content, they can create a fresh tag. They can choose a bunch of existing tags. If you have ever gone to any edtech's website, the first thing they do is they ask your first name, last name, and your college. So जो college की list होती है ना, that is ever increasing. Your college either already exists in their database, या फिर you put some random college that let's say no one knows of, MNG College Jaipur. When you add, that college gets added to the list. Now future people can search for that college. So it is a list that grows as time goes by. Same will be true for these tags. Initially कोई tags नहीं होंगे. If the first person comes and tags their document with productivity or politics, तो वो tag बन जाएगा. Next time, anyone on the website can choose between these tags: productivity, politics, so on and so forth. Fetching existing documents for that user. Fetching all existing documents उस user के लिए. तो ये जो endpoint है /API/v1/content पे get request will return you all of your content, which means इसके header में you have to send your authorization token. I repeat, in the header of this authenticated endpoint, even add new content, fetching all existing documents, may you will send your JWT, जो sign in में JWT मिला था, जो token sign in के दौरान मिला था, you will resend that when you want to add new content, when you want to fetch existing contents or documents. Delete a document, मुझे एक document नहीं चाहिए अपने second brain में, निकाल दिया. Delete endpoint with the content ID कि ये content मुझे delete कर देना है. Create a shareable link for your second brain. ये है कि if the user wants, they can call this endpoint with share true or share false. If they call it with share true, तो हम उनका एक shareable link बना देंगे. They can share that with the world, and then anyone can publicly see their brain. अभी तक, if share is false, initially by default, no shareable link. My data is private to me. Only I can access it. Only I can access this get endpoint for fetching all my existing documents. But if I make it shareable, if I send share:true, it will create a shareable link. I can share it with everyone. They can see my contents as well. So when I call this, I get back a link to the open brain. There should be another endpoint here that I suddenly thought of. कि जो shareable link बन जाएगा, it will look something like this, yourbrain.com/open, which means open brains, जिन्होंने publicly share किए हुए हैं, /some ID. तो एक endpoint ये भी होना चाहिए कि anyone can access someone else's brain based on this unique ID. That's how you share Google Docs, right? If I'm sharing a Notion doc with you right now, if you look at its URL, there is a unique ID in the URL. It is some base URL /some unique ID. ये title हटा दो तो भी it opens the same doc. If I remove this title, just go to /ID, it will still open the same doc. So this ID, we need one more endpoint, which I forgot to write. Akash, can you write that in the Notion doc? That endpoint will be कि जब कोई random बंदा आया and they want to fetch my brain, they can fetch it by the shareable link. So try to design the schema. नहीं तो अभी आ भी जाएगा यहाँ पे. Akash will put it over here. That is what we are building. Now tell me how many of you can already code this in an hour and a half without GPTing, without, you can ask questions if need be, but preferably Google it, Stack Overflow. Can you build this? TypeScript, MongoDB, Express, JSON Web Token. These are the 4 libraries you want. Akash raised his hand. Tell me, Akash, you don't have rate access?
No, I'm doing it.
Oh, you're doing it. Cool. So we'll add another endpoint here जो बनाना है अभी. जब तक वो नहीं लगता, that is fine. How many of you can build this? Let's do a poll. 1.5 hours, वैसे तो 1 to 1.5 hours में. Can you build this? Oh. Most people said yes. Like 50% yes, 50% no. So yes, वालों, I will share the architecture of second brain. Okay, how do you actually talk to it also? And no वालों, start to code. एक प्रोजेक्ट इनिशियलाइज तो करो. मैं इनिशियलाइज कर देता हूँ प्रोजेक्ट. आई विल इनिशियलाइज द प्रोजेक्ट विद यू, and then I will, for the advanced people who can already build this, even though you should practice, you should write more code. I'll also share how can you actually build a second brain, how can you actually query it using AI. Cool. Let's get right into it. ये बैकएंड है और ये मैंने स्कीमा लिखा है कि यार दिस स्कीमा होपफुली इज इनफ. आई डोंट थिंक वी नीड एनीथिंग मोर देन इट. स्कीमा क्या होता है हकीरत? व्हाट डज द डेटाबेस लुक लाइक? द डेटाबेस शुड हैव अ यूजर्स टेबल जहां पे हम यूजर इंफॉर्मेशन स्टोर करेंगे. यूजर नेम, पासवर्ड. पासवर्ड शुड बी हैश्ड. वी हैव डिस्कस्ड दिस. कंटेंट, which means is, if you look at one row of the content table, it is the link to the content. क्या टाइप था कंटेंट का? यूट्यूब, समथिंग लाइक दैट. यूट्यूब लिंक, नोशन डॉक. द टाइटल, द टैग्स एंड द यूजर आईडी. नाउ नोटिस कुछ एरोज बनाए हुए हैं मैंने. दिस इज व्हाट इज कॉल्ड रिलेशनशिप्स. ये हमने कवर नहीं किया है. वी आर गोइंग टू लर्न दिस ऑन द गो एंड आई विल मेक अ वीडियो ऑन इट आल्सो. बट दिस इज व्हाट इज कॉल्ड रिलेशनशिप्स. Whenever you store an entry in the contents table, let's say your user table looks like this. User ID 1 has username Hakirat, has password, some hashed password over here. This is the users table. The content table will look like this. The content table will be, here there is a content ID, title, link, so on and so forth. And last में there will be a user ID over here. This user ID, content ID would be, let's say, some random ID 5 or some random whatever 1 2 3 ID. Title would be, whatever, some tweet. Link would be Twitter or x.com / जो भी है. यूजर आईडी इस कौन से यूजर का कंटेंट है. व्हेन आई राइट यूजर आईडी 1 ओवर हियर, इसका मतलब है कि इस यूजर की बात हो रही है. दिस यूजर ओन्स दिस स्पेसिफिक रो और दिस यूजर का कंटेंट है. यूजर आईडी 1 मींस कि द पर्सन विद यूजर आईडी 1 क्रिएटेड दिस कंटेंट. हमारे पास एक सिंगल टेबल है. आई डोंट हैव मल्टीपल टेबल्स. कंटेंट हरकीरत, कंटेंट रमन. ऐसा नहीं है कि मैंने अलग अलग टेबल्स बनाए हैं. आई हैव अ सिंगल टेबल कॉल्ड कंटेंट जिसमें हरकीरत की रोज भी स्टोर्ड होंगी, रमन की रोज भी स्टोर्ड होंगी, सबकी स्टोर्ड होंगी. तो देयर विल बी अ यूजर आईडी फील्ड ओवर हियर. ये कौन से यूजर का ट्वीट है? देयर कैन बी अनदर ट्वीट इसके बिलो. लेट्स से इट्स रैंडम, इज आईडी इज व्हाटएवर 333, title is something, link is something, and user ID is 2. अब ये रो doesn't belong to this user. It belongs to a different user. Let's say there's another user on your website. ये वाली रो, ये वाला कंटेंट इस रो का है, इस यूजर का है. ये वाला कंटेंट इस यूजर का है. ये चीज समझ आ रही है? दिस इज व्हाट इज कॉल्ड इन एसक्यूएल, दीज आर कॉल्ड फॉरेन की रिलेशनशिप्स. कि ये जो लास्ट रो है इज अ फॉरेन की. फॉरेन का मतलब कि किसी और टेबल में एग्जिस्ट करती है. की का मतलब उसकी यूनिक की है जिससे आप उसको आइडेंटिफाई कर सकते हो. क्या कहते हैं इसे? फॉरेन की. इवन दो मोंगोडीबी में कोई ऐसा कॉन्सेप्ट होता नहीं है फॉरेन कीज का, यू कैन स्टिल कॉल देम फॉरेन कीज. एसक्यूएल में इट्स मच मोर हार्डन्ड. बट यहां पे भी वी आर नॉट स्टोरिंग कि अच्छा ये जो कंटेंट आईडी है, टाइटल है, लिंक है, ये हरकीरत का है जिसका पासवर्ड ये है. ये डेटा को हम रिपीट नहीं कर रहे हैं दो जगह पे. आई डोंट हैव टू डिफरेंट प्लेसेस वेयर आई एम स्टोरिंग हरकीरत एंड पासवर्ड. हरकीरत एंड पासवर्ड एग्जिस्ट इन यूजर्स टेबल, कंटेंट एग्जिस्ट इन कंटेंट टेबल. एक एक्स्ट्रा चीज है यहाँ पे विच इज कॉल्ड अ फॉरेन की, विच इज यार ये कंटेंट कौन से यूजर का है, इस यूजर का है या फिर इस यूजर का है. दैट इज वाई इफ यू लुक एट द स्कीमा ओवर हियर यू विल सी एरोज एवरीवेयर. कि जो यूजर आईडी है दैट इज अ फॉरेन की टू द यूजर्स टेबल. अगर यूजर्स टेबल में एक ऐसी एंट्री है तो कंटेंट टेबल में जो यूजर आईडी है दैट रिप्रेजेंट्स दिस यूजर, कि ये कंटेंट इस यूजर का है. सेम इज ट्रू फॉर टैग्स. इन MongoDB is a NoSQL database. You can put a very complex object in. आप सीधा array डाल देते हो वहां पे. If I open MongoDB and if you look at one of the rows over here, you will see tags is an array. यहाँ पे मैं एक array of things भी डाल सकता हूँ. एक random, I was writing this before the class. So as you can see, the contents table has links, type, title, user ID, which is a foreign key to the users table. Eventually जब हम बनाएंगे, यहाँ एक user exist करता है, उसका content ये रहा, ये रही उसकी user ID. Tags is an array of foreign keys. It's an array of foreign keys. कि यहाँ पे मैं exact tag का नाम नहीं स्टोर करूंगा, productivity, whatever, politics. I will store a foreign key to something in the tags table. यहाँ पे अभी कोई डेटा नहीं है, but as we add more and more tags, content में the tags entry is an array of foreign keys. Whatever written tags is tag reference का array. Each one of the elements of this array would be an ID pointing to something in the tags table. It will not be the actual tag. यहाँ पे ऐसा नहीं होगा tags is productivity, politics. यहाँ पे होगा tags is 1, 2, where 1 is an entry over here, 2 is another entry over here. That is what this foreign key is. तो यूजर्स टेबल यूजर का डेटा, कॉन्टेंट्स टेबल कॉन्टेंट्स का डेटा, टैग्स टेबल करंटली अवेलेबल टैग्स जो यूजर यूज कर सकता है, लिंक्स टेबल के अगर किसी ने पब्लिकली शेयरेबल लिंक बनाया, इफ समवन मेक्स अ पब्लिकली शेयरेबल लिंक, दैट विल एग्जिस्ट ओवर हियर. यार ये जो हैश है, हैश एज इन अ यूनिक आईडी इज फॉर दिस यूजर आईडी, व्हिच अगेन इज अ रेफरेंस टू द यूजर्स टेबल. कि यूजर आईडी 1 का हैश है 1 2 3 4 5 6. तो नाउ इफ एनीवन गोज टू yourbrain.com/share/12345 उसको हरकीरत का सेकंड ब्रेन दिखना चाहिए, बिकॉज हरकीरत ने इसको इनेबल किया. हरकीरत enabled an externally shareable link and that data is stored over here. हरकीरत उसको डिसेबल कर देगा तो we will delete it from here. If हरकीरत re-enables it, we will re-add an entry over here. So this is our database schema. Do you understand this? How many of us understand? थोड़ा फॉरेन कीज कोड कर लेंगे, देख लेंगे हरकीरत, कोई बात नहीं. I have written the code below also. So there is enough hints here, even though you shouldn't go through hints, but ठीक है. This might be easier than Googling it. If you look at the user schema, it will look like this. Okay, every user will have a username and a password. Username will be type string. It is required. There cannot be an entry without username. Unique true. Okay, username needs to be unique. Same username के दो user नहीं हो सकते. Password doesn't have to be unique. Two people can have the same password. Type string required is true. Tag schema, simple enough. हर tag का एक title ही तो होगा. Every tag will have what? It will have a title. That is it. इसको और किसी चीज की जरूरत नहीं. Now come the complicated ones. Link से start करते हैं. The link table over here. It will have a hash which is a string and user ID which is a reference to the user's table. User ID will be a string only, or more technically an object ID if you remember from MongoDB, but it will be a reference to the users table. So if I go to link schema, hash simple string, it is required. User ID is complicated. It is required and it is of type object ID. It is not of type string. If you remember, all IDs in MongoDB are of type object ID in the specific format of a string. 1 2 3 नहीं डाल सकते उसमें आप, उसकी कुछ लेंथ होती है. It is some highly randomized string. It needs to be that object ID. And if you look at the user ID here, that is also an object ID. Similarly, the user ID here का type होगा object ID. And here comes the most important bit. Ref user. कि this refers to the users model. जो यूजर स्कीमा हमने लिखा है यहाँ पे, इसके बाद हम इसका मॉडल भी बनाएंगे अगर आपको याद हो तो जो मॉडल में जो नाम होता है वही यहाँ दिखता है. एंड आई एम सेइंग यार आई रेफर टू द यूजर्स मॉडल. ये जो यूजर आईडी है ना, ये वहां पॉइंट करती है. इसका फायदा क्या है, विल कम टू इवेंचुअली. व्हाई इज दिस बेनिफिशियल? व्हाई कैन आई नॉट सिंपली से ऑब्जेक्ट आईडी हरकीरत? व्हाई डू आई हैव टू क्रिएट अ रिलेशनशिप? विल कम टू इट वेरी सून व्हेन वी ये पॉपुलेटिंग रिलेशनशिप्स में इसका आंसर मिल जाएगा. बट दिस इज अ गुड आइडिया टू स्पेसिफाई रिलेशनशिप्स. You don't have to specify relationships. इसके बिना भी काम चल जाएगा. You don't have to do this. But अगर ये कर दोगे तो एक छोटी सी हेल्प हो जाती है. We'll see what that helps. And lastly, content schema. Again, might look very overwhelming, but link is a simple string. Type is a simple string. Type is not a string. It can be a string also. But हमने थोड़ा सा फैंसी हो गए हैं. हमने enum बना दिया है. enum क्या होता है? Enum means it can be one of these four values. It can either be image or video or article or audio, let's say. It cannot be any fifth thing. You can remove this also. अगर आपको अभी इतना strict schema नहीं चाहिए, you don't need a strict schema, it's fine. You can get rid of this. What we have done is, यार इन चारों में से कोई एक ही हो सकता है. It cannot be something else. Title is a string. Tags and user ID again are a little complicated. User ID is object ID, refers to the users table, required true, just like the links table. Tags is an array of object ID, which refers to the tag table. It is an array, a bunch of them. देखो, tags is not array of string. इस tags में आप strings नहीं store करोगे. You will store an object ID, which will refer to the tags table over here. Do we understand the schema? Let's do a quick poll. Yeah, good enough. 85% is decent. Not great, but decent. तो अब जल्दी से मैं बूटस्ट्रैप करा देता हूं आपकी एप्लीकेशन. वी विल राइट द कोड टू बूटस्ट्रैप इट. ऑल द मैनुअल कोड उसके बाद मेहनत करना इज योर पार्ट. आई विल आल्सो डू इट एट द एंड. तो लेट मी बूटस्ट्रैप इट. देन वील टॉक अबाउट हाउ डू यू ऐड द एआई बिट्स टू इट. देन आई विल आल्सो कोड दिस. ठीक है, दैट्स गोइंग टू बी द स्ट्रक्चर. स्टेप 1 इज कि आपकी मशीन पे स्टार्ट हो जाए एटलीस्ट एप्लीकेशन. यू हैव द एप्लीकेशन रनिंग ऑन योर मशीन. So for that, again, there is bootstrapping section over here. I've added everything. We are new to TypeScript, so it is totally fine. We can do it in a hand-holdy fashion for now. Let's initialize an empty TypeScript project. अभी सिर्फ backend कर रहे हैं, not the frontend. Let's initialize the backend of an empty TypeScript project. Let me open my terminal. And here, let me go to projects/cohort3 and name it Brainly. I'm going to create a fresh folder called Brainly, which is going to be my, hello, which is going to be my folder where I'll store all of my code, cd Brainly. Let me open this in Visual Studio Code. I have a empty project over here. एकदम simple. ये तो कई बार किया है. JavaScript projects बनाए हैं. Today we will make a TypeScript project. That is the only difference. How do you initialize an empty JavaScript project? npm init-y. What does this do? It creates an empty package.json file. That is step 1. Now you should get comfortable with step 2 as well. Whenever you are creating new TypeScript projects, you have to do one more thing. सबसे पहले npm install TypeScript, or maybe something like this, -d TypeScript. Install it as a dev dependency rather than a proper dependency. npm install -d TypeScript. And then you do, this was the first command line. Second command is npx tsc-init. This command will create an empty tsconfig.json. Not an empty tsconfig.json. इसमें कुछ already आता है. But just like npm init-y creates this, npx tsc-init creates this, a tsconfig.json file. Here, what do we do? If you remember from last week, one very important thing we covered. कि यार ये बहुत complicated file होती है. It has a lot of things, a lot of flags that you can set. But one very important flag we talked about was change the root directory to be ./src. You can name it whatever you want. Common practice is to name it src or app. We are going to name it src. My out directory, जहां पे कोड JavaScript का प्रेजेंट होगा. TypeScript gets converted to JavaScript. JavaScript is what runs on your machine. JavaScript code I'm going to store in ./dist या फिर ./build. यही दो इंपॉर्टेंट वो होते हैं. Let me disable super enable. Out dir dist, root dir source. Slides में भी है. If you go to the slides, that's step 2. इसके साथ तो muscle memory बना. Make this muscle memory. You have to do this almost every time you are starting a new TypeScript project. Then comes the part of installing dependencies. We are creating an HTTP server. So we would introduce dependencies like Express. That's our very famous HTTP server we have been using until now. So what is the next step? Install Express. And here comes the first challenge if you are introducing TypeScript in an Express application. आपको लगेगा सही है अभी तक. Install TypeScript, sorry, Express, everything looks good. One thing you can do now is use a different syntax for importing. I repeat, अभी तक हम लोग import एक दूसरे तरीके से कर रहे थे. We were using require. But if you remember, React में we were using an import statement, which is slightly better, more modern, introduced later. If we are using TypeScript, we can now use this more modern syntax. If your ECMAScript version is above a certain level, which it is in our case. So now I can use this import syntax, and I should use this import syntax instead of the require syntax. So what will I do? I will first create a source folder. Why source folder? क्योंकि यहाँ पे root header क्या है? Source है. So I will create a source folder inside which I will create a index.ts file. Muscle memory, ये तो बना ही लो. This तो you should always new project has been started. ठीक है. To recap, what did we do? Initialize an empty TypeScript project, change the root dir and the out dir, installed Express, and now we want to write this code. Import Express from Express. Require statement नहीं use करेंगे. Import statement use करेंगे. Believe it or not, this is how one person got filtered out in Super 30. He was really good, but दुनिया भर के projects बना दिए. I said, just do one thing for me. Create an empty TypeScript project, add Express to it. Wasn't able to do it. Googling, some random commands he's putting. Import Express from Express. Like this should be 2 seconds mein khatam. You should be able to do, this very quickly. Now comes the second challenge. Here I am using the modern syntax here, Harkirat. Import Express from Express. I am not doing const Express equal to require Express. This seems to work. This is not giving me any TypeScript errors, but that is because it will not give you types either. If you use this require statement, it will be hard for you to get, as you can see, if I do express dot something, express dot something, कुछ help नहीं आ रही. Const app equal to express app dot. Why is it not giving me IntelliSense? Why is it not giving me extra के app dot get कर लो, app dot post कर लो? Because number one, your types aren't there in this code base, and number two, require statement doesn't care about types. आते हैं ठीक है, नहीं आते हैं कोई बात. But we want to have a very strict TypeScript code base. We want कि हमारे developers जब आए, when our developers come, they should be able to get some help. App dot कुछ लिखा तो get दिखना चाहिए यहाँ पे. Small break. That is not happening. Let's again replace with the import statement. अब import वाली आपको clearly कुछ error दे रही. वो कह रही है यार, I like types. I would want to use types. But if you hover over it, could not find a declaration file for module express. What error is it giving? क्या declaration file नहीं मिल रही. What is a declaration file? You might have heard of .d.ts files. If not, let me tell you what those are. अगर आप कोई library बनाते हो, if you create a library of your own, you write simple JavaScript code in there. आपने अपनी Express library जैसी बना दी, आप JavaScript code लिख रहे हो, you are happy. But now you want to write TypeScript code. I repeat, you are creating your own library. आपको उसमें TypeScript code लिखना है. Then you have to add a .d.ts file जहां पे आप बताओगे कि types क्या हैं. What are the types of this specific library of yours? एक high level बता देता हूँ. We will do a class on this also. But whenever you create a new library of yours, whatever, Express, इसमें बहुत सारी files होंगी. You will have index.ts, router.ts, app.ts, too many files. When you publish this for other people to use, You guys might have heard of the npm registry. The npm registry. अगर आप अपनी लाइब्रेरी बनाते हो, if you ever make your library, you publish it over here. If I search for Express here, you can find Express over here. It's like GitHub, but for libraries. तो यहाँ पे the code that you send, as you can see for Express, is just a JavaScript file. There is no TypeScript file here. अब मेरे को TypeScript project बनाना है. I want to make a TypeScript project. I am using Express. Express doesn't have TypeScript. I don't see any declaration file .d.ts file. I don't see any TypeScript file .ts file. तो how can I import this code? When I do a npm install express, मैं क्या कर रहा हूं? जो भी express के developer ने यहां publish किया है, whatever the developer of express has published over here, I am bringing it to my machine. If I go to node modules/express and press ls, क्या दिख रहा है यहां पे? 5 फाइल्स दिख रही हैं. Do I see the same 5 files here? Yes. Is there any TypeScript code here? No. So of course this will complain, right? It is saying कि यार तो TypeScript project बना रहे हो, but you are using a library that does not have types. तो क्या करें? अगली thing, TS ignore. I don't think I introduced this before, but if you add this comment above any line that is complaining, error goes away. That is the ugly way. You should always avoid TS ignores. In fact, you should enforce कि code base में कोई TS ignore नहीं होना चाहिए. Fix the error. Question is, how do we fix the error? Bigger question is, why does Express not have a TypeScript file here? Express is such a big library. It is probably written in TypeScript, right? Right? GitHub Express. देखते हैं. lib. अरे Express तो JavaScript में ही लिखी हुई है. The developer itself did not write it in TypeScript. The developer wrote it in JavaScript. So of course it will be very hard for a TypeScript project to use Express because Express is using JavaScript. We are using TypeScript. This is their original code. They bundle this code, publish it on npm. This is what that code looks like. This code also doesn't have TypeScript. So how can you? The reason for this is ये बहुत पहले बनी थी. उस time पे TypeScript wasn't a thing. TypeScript wasn't a thing for a lot of years. JavaScript was the only thing. So a lot of libraries were published without types. So to add backward compatibility to them, to make sure कि यार अगर इनको types के साथ use करना है, the developers of these applications wrote इनके types अलग से. Express code base is still in JavaScript. They have not migrated to TypeScript, but they have separately written a types file. यार ये लो, मैंने types अलग से लिख दी हैं. This is what the Express return type looks like. अगर ये Express जो रिटर्न कर रहा हूं इसका टाइप ऐसा दिखता है, मैंने अलग से लिख दिया एक फाइल. यू कैन क्रिएट दीज मैनुअली, दीज डिक्लेरेशन फाइल्स मैनुअली. यार डिक्लेयर मॉड्यूल एक्सप्रेस कुछ ऐसी दिखती होगी कि गेट है यहाँ पे जो ऐसा दिखता है, एंड यू नो इट हैज अ रेक which is of some type, so on and so forth. You can manually write these also. That is what happens in a bunch of these archaic libraries. So इनके types exist करते हैं in npm install at types/express. इसको भी usually dev dependency बनाना चाहिए. This only has declaration files. Declaration files never run when you are running your final JavaScript code. तो JavaScript code है ना, उसमें तो TypeScript की कोई जरूरत ही नहीं है. That is why it should be a dev dependency. नहीं भी करते हो dev dependency, that is also fine. Dev means कि development के दौरान use हो रही है, production में use नहीं हो रही. Let's install at types/express. Let's see what at types/express looks like here. अच्छा ये कोई नई ही लाइब्रेरी है at types/express and that looks like this. अब इसके कोड में can you see a .d.ts file? Yes sir. This is the declaration file. अलग से लिखी है. If you write TypeScript code, you can spit out a declaration file very easily. When you build it, it's very easy to spit it out. हाथ से नहीं लिखनी पड़ती. You don't have to write it manually. These guys most probably have written it manually. I could be wrong. But since their code base is in JavaScript, there is no way to write this declaration file without writing it manually. But if their code base was in TypeScript, then it will automatically spit out a declaration file. If you ever create a TypeScript project in the future, तो आप उसके कोड में यहाँ पे you will publish the JavaScript file, the final JavaScript bundle. You will publish the .d.ts file. You will not publish the original TypeScript file. Whenever you publish to npm, you don't publish the TypeScript file. You publish the JavaScript file. You publish the .d.ts file. ठीक है, थोड़ा ज्यादा हो गया, कोई बात नहीं. पॉइंट वाज कि अगर ये इंस्टॉल नहीं करोगे, a lot of times you will see this error कि cannot find a declaration file for this module. So most probably this is a very old library, and all you have to do is add at types / that library. Let's install it. I think I installed it. Why did the error not go away? Let's see. We will debug. Because I'm in the wrong folder. I am node modules / express. अब इसके node modules में चली गई at types / express. यहाँ नहीं डालनी है. I put it over here. Brainly / node module / express / node modules / at type / express. यहाँ नहीं डालनी थी. I will go back to my project folder. And here I will do a at types / express. Now, notice the error goes away. Notice when I hover over it and click on it, it takes me to, if you look at this file, it takes me to the index.d.ts file. यार यहाँ पे रहे इसके types. It does not take me to the JavaScript file. Whenever I hover over it, whenever I use it now, can you see IntelliSense आ गई? app.g लिखा, इतनी सारी चीजें आ गई. Why? Because now I have the types. Now my LSP, language server protocol, now my IDE can understand कि अच्छा यहाँ पे types present है. Get is a type. If I hover over it and go over there, it will show me कि यहाँ पे index.d.ts में type ये रहा. That is why you can use the require syntax, but you shouldn't. वो types को ignore कर देता है. This will enforce types. And you know, if the library maintainer did not publish the types, he probably published this or someone else published it on at types / library name. वहां से ले आओ. Good. That is the only hard bit. Same will happen for JSON Web Token or Mongoose, one of these two. Let's do a npm install Mongoose. Let's try to import Mongoose here. Import Mongoose from Mongoose. Let's do a, that works. So Mongoose mein, there is a declaration file already. If I hover over it, it tells me error.d.ts exist करती है कहीं पे. तो Mongoose में that's not the case. Let's try JSON Web Token. That will be another library we will use for creating JWTs, if you remember. Let's do import JWT from JSON Web Token. And फिर से वो error आ गया. ये तो कुछ और error है. JWT.generate. वो कह रहा था it is not being used. I used it. Still it is giving an error. What is the error? Could not find a declaration file for JSON Web Token. So what can I do? Add types / JSON Web Token. उसके भी types आ जाएंगे खत्म. Error went away. Cool. And देखो types आ गए. Now this line complains. यार इसके अंदर you need to give some arguments. This line is giving a red squiggly because वो कह रहा है generate function doesn't exist. But जब तक मैं types नहीं लाया था, उसको पता ही नहीं generate function doesn't exist. You are not able to use any benefits of TypeScript if you don't have the declaration file. That is why you need the declaration file. ठीक है. To recap, if you look at package.json now, it has express, it has at type / express, it has JSON Web Token, it has at type / JSON Web Token, it has Mongoose, it has TypeScript. Cool. I think मैंने कुछ गलत लिख दिया था. These should have been in the dev dependencies section. I think I did a -d. I should have done a --dev or something. It's fine. D. Sorry, capital D. हाँ, there you go. I had to do npm install -D. तो वो dev dependencies में आ जाएगा. This is also fine. No issues at all. Cool. Bootstrap कर दिया project. लिखो routes. क्या routes थे हमारे? There was a post on /API /v1/sign. There was a post on /signin. There was a post on content to create a content. There was a get on content. There was a delete on content. एक और था जो अभी shareable वाला और ये there was one for sharing, allowing sharing. Let's see. Let's complete the bootstrapping. I'll push it so you can वहां से start to write the code. What were the other two endpoints? One that I wrote and one hopefully Akash wrote. API v1 brain share. There you go. App.post. And lastly, a get endpoint to get a specific, um, you know, shareable link that someone else's brain जिन्होंने share किया हुआ है. So app.get this thing. अब इसके आगे आप लिखोगे mongoose के सारे वो फाइल में प्रेजेंट हैं. Try to write it. Google it a little bit if need be. But simple CRUD application. You have to start MongoDB locally or get a free MongoDB instance. If I go to MongoDB, I already have one. मैंने तो थोड़ी देर पहले चलाया भी था. That was working for me. You need to get a MongoDB instance. Harkirat, how can I get it? Like we've been getting it until now. Go to mongodb.com. Start it locally. Either is fine. So do that first. Get MongoDB. Write the db.ts file जहां पे आप सारा डेटाबेस का लॉजिक लिख रहे हो. Create user models and schemas here. Import them here. Do the CRUD applications. User dot create. यही तो करना है यहाँ, और क्या करना. Simple enough. Let me push this initial bootstrapping to GitHub. You can start from there and start to write some code. इसके बाद I'll discuss the architecture of the AI bit. Then I will also code this a little bit. ठीक है. Week 16 second. Okay. All right. This is the link to the bootstrapped application. इसके बाद try to code a little bit. Until then, let me take you through the architecture of how do you actually build a second brain. क्या चीज रह गई है that you should add. One more thing is source index.ts, and that looks right. Just recapping it. Source db.ts. इन दो फाइल्स में हमारा काम चल जाएगा. Should...
it's lagging.
Yep. Google Chrome खोला ना मैंने. That is all right. That should do it hopefully. Still pretty bad. Brave. Okay, let me close Brave as well. Cool. Hopefully it should be fine now. I don't know how I will explain the thing now. It's fine. We'll open something. Safari. I think it'll be even worse. But one more thing is you need a middleware.ts file जहाँ पे आप अपना auth middleware डालोगे. So there should be 3 files. Let me push this as well. Bootstrap code is there. Please try to write some code. Hopefully यार middleware तो बनाना आ गया. Single user है. There are 2 admins also. It should be simple enough. Let's get into understanding the architecture of, hopefully Brave doesn't crash on me. Akash, let me know if it lags. All right. Let's do a poll. Let's see कितनी smart जनता है यहाँ पे. How many of you already know how to build this? To recap, the application is people can come and put their links that they keep forgetting about. Links could be things like Trump won. Yeah, whatever. Solana architecture. या फिर Rust basics. जो भी उनको interesting link मिलता है यहाँ डाल देते हैं. Eventually, this list becomes really long. There are a lot of links to track. This list becomes really long. Ab they want to find, yeah, please give me the tweet which had, Rust basics. Or they want to simply, ये जो knowledge base है, I repeat, this is a knowledge, oh God, I need to go back to school. I'm sure the spelling is incorrect. ये जो knowledge base है, I should be able to query it. Okay. tell me basics about Rust. And it needs to somehow get context from this. It needs to somehow filter out कि यार this is the right doc. ये इसमें सही इंफॉर्मेशन थी, इसमें रस्ट बेसिक्स थे. It needs to either return me this, that's the easy problem, or it needs to take the contents of this. मान लो इसका content कुछ ऐसा दिखता था. Rust is an easy language. It has concepts like ownership and borrowing. Let's say इतना था. When you ask, tell me more about the basics of Rust, what needs to happen is, आपने ये request भेजी to an HTTP endpoint, to an HTTP server. Simple. आपने पूछा, tell me the basics of Rust. Now this HTTP endpoint can forward this request to GPT, OpenAI, Cloud, whatever, some LLM model. It can, as it is, forward your request. Tell me the basics about Rust. Or you can add some context in here. Given the following, tell me the basics about Rust. Tell me basics about Rust. I am giving you some context here. So we need to make sure that we don't forward the user query to GPT. फिर तो क्या ही है? You have just built a GPT wrapper. You want कि यूजर के भी जो रेलिवेंट इंफॉर्मेशन है, मान लो इसमें भी थोड़ा बहुत रस्ट था, यू पुल दिस हियर आल्सो. यू गिव जीपीटी सम मोर कॉन्टेक्स्ट. यार ये हमारे यूजर का डेटा है, इसके बेसिस पे बता दे कि टेल मी द बेसिक्स अबाउट रस्ट. ये समझ आया? डू वी अंडरस्टैंड दिस? मोस्ट ऑफ देम, दीज एप्लीकेशंस डू दिस. व्हाट डू दे डू? पहले दे विल मेक यू बिल्ड योर नॉलेज बेस, then they will let you query your knowledge base. When you are querying your knowledge base, they will not forward the request as such. They will get the relevant docs and forward your request to GPT with those relevant docs. In this case, there might be this relevant doc, there might be another relevant doc which has Rust ka knowledge. How many of us understand the architecture? Like the final architecture of building something like this. Let's do a poll. Do you understand this? अरे बाप रे, नहीं समझ आया. We will start from scratch. We will start from scratch. ये तो बहुत ही गंदा नंबर था. 50% understood. Let me.
Screen is lagging.
Screen is lagging. Close this. All right. कोई ड्राइंग एप्लीकेशन नहीं है ना, यूएसबी-सी भी नहीं है. थिंकिंग.
If you have iPad, you can join from that.
I have iPad. I don't have the wire, I think.
Directly join from.
Or you can. Let's try it. I think you can via AirPlay, but I don't think I have. I don't know. I haven't connected it. Let's see. We'll try. Whoa. Sorry about that. It is lagging. There is no easy way to fix the lag. Let me try screen share via AirPlay. Apple via AirPlay.
Join the meeting from the tab itself if you have Zoom.
That might be it actually. I will have to install Zoom bus. उसके लिए I have to add Wi-Fi over here. And उसके लिए I'll have to call the guy कि भाई Wi-Fi का password क्या है? तो connect to Wi-Fi Midtown Grand. All right, let's try it. I don't know. Yeah, I can't connect to that Wi-Fi.
एयरप्ले करके देखो डायरेक्ट.
AirPlay होता है इसमें? Screen mirroring. Nah. Let's give it one more try. God knows, luck might be on our side. I should install Zoom on my pad, but I don't have it. All right. अगर lag होगा भाई तभी रोक देना मुझे, आकाश. All right.
Yeah.
Cool. Let's try Google Chrome. Brave was lagging really bad. Maybe Chrome doesn't. Cool. What I was saying. Oh, yeah. There you go. This is what I was teaching that other guy, जो वो कल basic MongoDB में फंस गया था. All right. The application we are building has an HTTP server which supports very simple things. Add content /content will add some content over here. So if you go to the final website, the website will show you your content. These are Twitter links, YouTube videos, GitHub links that you have put here in the past. Problem is, this becomes very big. Your knowledge base becomes very big. This knowledge base is nothing but something stored in a database, links stored in a database. This knowledge base is very big. User now comes to your website and wants to query the knowledge base. यार मैं देखो बहुत पहले कुछ ट्रम्प का एक ट्वीट दिया था. Tell me about the Trump tweet I shared a few weeks ago. Or a better query might be, what is Trump's stance on H-1B visas? Let's say a few weeks ago you saw a tweet where Trump was talking about H-1B and you put that tweet over here. Now, amongst the thousands of entries you have over here, one of those tweets is this. This is that tweet जहां पे ट्रंप ने H-1B की बात करी. Now, when you ask the HTTP server, when you finally go to this website, there will be a way to query your knowledge. When you query your knowledge with what is Trump's stance on H-1B visas, अब HTTP server को तो कुछ नहीं पता. It doesn't know. It can forward it to an LLM. अब LLMs तो बहुत smart है. If I go to ChatGPT and I ask it or Claude what was the Trump stance, वो कुछ लौटा देगा. So either I can forward this request to GPT. There are very simple APIs that you can hit. ChatGPT gives you API access also. आप अपने backend से उनका backend hit कर सकते हो. From your backend, you can ask it questions. It will return the response. Should you forward this as such to GPT and get the response? Or should you add some context to it? What is Trump's stance on H-1B? Given you have the following information. And ये tweet मैं इसके नीचे डाल. If I forward this to ChatGPT, now it has more context about your knowledge base. The tweet that you had put there a few weeks ago looked like this. By tweet, I mean the full contents of the tweet. Assume the full contents of the tweet is stored over here. Full context I paste over here. And this I forward to GPT. GPT will respond with your knowledge base. कि यार आपके tweet के basis पे the stance of Trump is this. So that way, I will be able to query my knowledge base. I am not asking ChatGPT directly. This is the question, but I don't have to ask it directly. Our service, our second brain service needs to make sure कि वो relevant docs उठाए यहाँ से, ये relevant है, ये relevant है, ये relevant है. वो सारे भेजे to GPT. It should send all of these relevant docs to GPT. That is what our backend needs to do. Do we understand this? And जो भी response है forward कर दो. This way, the user was able to query their knowledge base. The user was able to query their knowledge base. And they could have a very big knowledge base. The brain could be very big. You found the relevant things and forward it. ये समझ आया? कैसे होता है is a different question. How do you find the relevant tweets, the relevant links and put them over here in the prompt is a different question. How do you enrich the prompt is a different question. कि user ने ये बोला, but मेरा prompt तो बहुत enriched है. It has a lot of knowledge. How do you find the relevant tweets given this question is a different question. यहां से हमने ये चारों कैसे निकाले is a different question. But do we understand that this is how you query a knowledge base? Great. 85%. Decent. Everyone should look at the recording again. समझ आ जाए. Question is, how do you find the relevant tweets? Given this statement, how do you find कि इतने सारे database में जो entries हैं, in all of these links, what is the most relevant link that I need to forward to GPT? How do I know कि ये है और ये है relevant, ये relevant नहीं है? How do I find the top 5 most relevant tweets or links or whatever knowledge base items given the question statement? Does anyone know the answer in chat? Elasticsearch is great. That's one. Very good. Vector similarity is one. .org embeddings, keywords, DB share कर दो, filter with tags. Great, bunch of thoughts. Very Web 2 thoughts. By Web 2 I mean, before LLMs were a thing, लोग ये करते थे. Before vector databases were a thing. Vector databases, embeddings. ये दो चीजें हैं that are very popular now, weren't popular before. So someone said, Arkirat, Elasticsearch. What is Elasticsearch? अगर आप नॉर्मल सर्च करते हो, इफ यू गो टू projects or 100xdev.com and यहाँ पे try to search for something, Kafka. So this can use something like Elasticsearch. Elasticsearch is a very fast search. This other company, Algolia, does the same thing. तो जब सर्च किसी भी वेबसाइट में डालनी होती है, when you go to Swiggy and search for a restaurant, write butter chicken, there it makes sense to use Elasticsearch. There it makes sense to use, some searching library, some searching framework, some search database like Algolia or Elasticsearch. But हमें ये नहीं करना है. We sort of want this only. Actually, this is not a bad approach now that I think of it. But there are a bunch of problems. I mean, no, I can't think of any problem in it. ये भी तो सही है, वो भी सही है. But vector databases may or may not perform better. Now, I don't know if they will perform better. Someone roast Elasticsearch, I'm like, Elasticsearch actually might not be the worst idea here. So that is one approach. Elasticsearch is a very fast search on a lot of data. If you have a lot of data, for example, we have Notion docs. यहाँ पे इतने बड़े-बड़े docs होते हैं. We have added, if you search for week 1, it will make you reach this doc because this data is dumped to Algolia or Elasticsearch. That is one way. The other way is you use vector databases. This is a whole different now AI thing. How many of us understand embeddings and vector databases? This is the actual answer to this. This is how it is done. But do we understand what are vector databases and embeddings? मैं brief दे दूंगा. But I just want to see how many of us already know this. Do we know embeddings and vector databases? If you've already built chat with a PDF, you know. Okay. 90% say no. अगर आपने मतलब famous application सुनी होगी, chat with a PDF, a very famous starter project in AI or RAGs, retrieval augmented generation, something like that. I forgot the full form. If you built any of these applications, they use the same architecture, which is अभी थोड़ा complicated होगा, तो 5 मिनट bear with me. If you don't understand it, this isn't part of the full stack cohort. I'm hoping जो code कर रहे थे वो अभी भी code कर रहे हैं. You guys have finished some part of the backend. For everyone else who's curious, the way, forget vector databases for now. Let's just focus on embeddings. There's this video by Karpathy called Building GPT from Scratch, something like that. He covers it in fair detail. But long story short, you guys know how ChatGPT works. It's been trained on a bunch of internet data. उसको बहुत सारा internet का data दिया, उस पर train हो गया. Now that data, even though it looks like this, whatever, Trump is some random text. दुनिया भर की websites पे lot of text. It is being trained on this data. But what it is actually being trained on is what's called embeddings. Any text that you look at can actually be converted into a vector that looks like this. I repeat, any big sentence, ChatGPT को जो समझ आता है, is a bunch of numbers, is a vector of numbers. Vectors याद है physics, chemistry, maths से. What was a vector? This is the y-axis. This is the x-axis. This is a vector. This vector coordinates are 2, 3. ये समझ आ रहा है? This vector's coordinates are 2, 3. This is what is called a vector. It has a direction. It has a magnitude. If it was a 3 axis, then it could be 2, 3, 5. यार x direction में ये है, y direction में ये है, z direction में ये है. Until 3 dimensions you can visualize. After the 3rd dimension you cannot visualize. So but there can be more dimensions. A vector is nothing but a bunch of numbers, right? Which people say is pointing in a direction. But 2D में you understand, 3D में you understand, 4D में सबका दिमाग खराब हो जाता है. People put some random ideas के. Time है 4th dimension. We don't know. A vector is nth dimensional. 100 भी हो सकती हैं, 500 भी हो सकती हैं, 1000 भी हो सकती हैं. So GPT is not trained on a bunch of text, but a bunch of vectors like these. And anytime you get any sentence, for example, Trump is fighting, is contesting for elections, you can convert into an embedding. There's a simple embedding models by GPT, you can use a different one. But एक simple model है, उसको आप text भेजो, आपको numbers लौटा दे कि इसका embeddings ऐसा दिखता है. Elon is supporting Trump. इसकी embeddings ऐसी दिखती है. 1 2 3 4 1 1 2 5 मान लो और 6. And the third tweet is flowers are filled with chlorophyll. Let's say the embedding of this, let's say, looks this like this: 100, 200, 500, 600, 600, something like this. Notice, जहां जहां ट्रंप की बात हो रही थी, the embeddings look very similar. The embeddings are very close to each other. If this was a two-dimensional, vector, this तो is 5-dimensional or 6-dimensional. If it was two-dimensional, जहां यहां पे भी ट्रंप की बात हुई, वो कुछ ऐसा दिख रहा है 2,3. यहां पे भी ट्रंप की बात हुई, वो कुछ ऐसा दिख रहा है 2,4. दे आर वेरी क्लोज टू ईच अदर. वर्सेस जहां क्लोरोफिल की बात हुई, दैट इज सम रैंडम वेक्टर ओवर हियर, -100, 100. तो व्हेन सिमिलर थिंग्स आर बीइंग टॉक्ड अबाउट, उनकी जो एम्बेडिंग्स बनती हैं, दे आर वेरी क्लोज टू ईच अदर. फॉर एग्जांपल, if there is a statement के, I mean, this is one example. There's a very good example about differences also. चलो वहां नहीं जाते हैं. There is this video by 3 Blue 1 Brown, which also covers transformers. He gives a very nice example about diffs. कि अगर यहाँ ट्रंप और इलॉन की बात हो रही है, एंड यहाँ मान लो there is another place जहाँ ट्रंप, whatever, I don't know, Bitcoin, and here you are talking about Bitcoin, Elon. I repeat, you are talking about Trump over here. उसका वेक्टर ये निकला. You are talking about Trump, Elon over here. उसका वेक्टर ये निकला. इनका जो डिफरेंस है ना, if you subtract this by this small vector will almost be very close to this small vector. जहां, because what is the difference between Trump, Elon and Trump? It is Elon. What is the difference between Bitcoin, Elon and Bitcoin? It is Elon. This small vector in this direction represents Elon Musk. थोड़ा बहुत समझ आया या? 3 Blue 1 Brown video, very nice. Long story short, आपके पास जो सारा डेटा है, you actually convert it to embeddings. You get that doc data and convert it into a bunch of vectors. Something like this. You don't store text. You store their embeddings. Something like this. And now, when the user's query comes, what is the Trump's stance on H1B? When this query comes, you convert the query into an embedding and you check, इन सब में से what is the closest vector to this? 1, 2 के सबसे पास कौन सा है? If, the final embedding vectors that you have created look like this, one is here, one is here, one is here, one is here. All of them are talking about a bunch of random things. All vectors pointing in random dimensions. they तो 2-dimensional है. It is a 100 dimension, let's say. तो दिखेगा भी नहीं वो कहाँ जा रहा है. But let's say your knowledge base looks like this on a graph. अब जब query आई, when the query came, you converted the query also into an embedding. इसको भी आपने embedding में convert कर लिया. देखा वो कहाँ lie कर रही है. और उसके सबसे पास जो है, the closest one is probably the one जहां ट्रंप की बात हो रही है. If this question is about Trump, hopefully, even though this is probabilistic, there is a high probability कि वहां कुछ और ही बात हो रही है. Yeah, it's not related to Trump, but there is a high probability कि ये, or let's say this was also very close. All three of them were about Trump. So it makes sense to forward all three of these to GPT. Yeah, these are the closest embeddings that I found. इनका जो text था original, GPT को भेज दो. That is how, when a query comes, you pick कि this and this and this are the best. You check इसका embedding क्या है. You find what is the closest embedding to this. You can do this by iterating over all of them, or just use a vector database. The name itself tells a vector database. इसमें आप vectors dump कर देते हो, and you can easily query what are the 5 closest vectors to this new vector. I repeat, we did not store these embeddings in a normal database. We can, but then it will be very hard for us to find the closest कौन सा है. Instead, store it in a vector database. All the embeddings are stored over here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 1, 1. Let's say these are the embeddings of all of our docs. And when the query came, which looks, let's say, the query looks like this, we can just ask the vector database कि यार इसके closest vectors मुझे दे दे please. So it will return अच्छा this is very close, the first one and the last one. तो उसके corresponding जो original text होगा, you will forward that to GPT, it will return. कौन बनाएगा ये? समझ आया थोड़ा थोड़ा? Vector databases embeddings. These are the two things that you need to let people query on a knowledge base. For example, we are now building, it's like a consulting project that someone in Super 30 is building now. We have a lot of IIT JEE data, a lot of IIT JEE questions, and we want people कि उनको एक app मिल जाए, they can ask a question to the app. यार, explain me this problem. Exactly same architecture. We have, let's say, 500 IIT JEE problems. We have dumped those IIT JEE problems in a vector DB. And whenever user sends this request, we find the top 3 relevant questions, forward the user's original question and the 3 relevant problems. 1, 2, 3. 3 relevant, whatever, docs or existing questions from existing JE. Forward this to GPT. GPT 99% will return the answer. Same architecture. Because here also we are querying a knowledge base. Now here the knowledge base is huge. Lakhs and lakhs of questions. But if someone's building a personal second brain, there'll be like 1,000 rows they've built over 5 years. But do we understand how the architecture is similar? Thoda do we understand that's how we need to use vector DBs and embeddings? You'll find some video here that will explain it probably better than me. And you can look at the code also. Okay, how can you call OpenAI.create embedding? Give it some text, prompt 1, and this will return you the vector for that specific text. But yeah, that is how this is built for chat with a PDF. Same ही तो है chat with a PDF. Chat with a PDF में क्या है? There is a very big PDF where people want to chat with it. Upload the PDF, talk to it. So this very big PDF is broken down into parts or what are called chunks. Chunk 1, chunk 2, chunk 3, chunk 4, chunk 5, so on and so forth. These are dumped to a vector database. All of these embeddings are dumped to a vector database. And now when you ask a question, here, what was my, let's say this is my resume that I uploaded. What was my rank in IIT JEE? So it needs to find that relevant block. इस question के closest, अब यहाँ पे भी IIT JEE rank लिखा होगा. I am asking also IIT JEE rank. So it will understand that probably this is the vector that he's talking about. So it will pull this out. It will pull out my original problem and send it to GPT. GPT will answer क्या नीचे ही तो लिखा है your IIT JEE rank was XYZ. So usually इतनी छोटी PDF में तो फर्क भी नहीं पड़ता. You can forward the whole thing to GPT. But if it's a 100-page PDF, then you break it down into chunks and store them separately as separate embeddings. The problem is GPT has a limited context window. आप उसको पूरा PDF नहीं दे सकते. आप उसको पूरा context window नहीं दे सकते. That is also bad. It will have too much context. So you have to filter out the context. For that, you use vector databases and embeddings. Do we understand this now? The architecture of building the main thing, the full thing. Small part, though, hopefully we understand. The one that we're coding. But do we understand the AI embedding, vector database, querying the vector database? Let's do a poll. There's also a video that Akash posted. Let's see. So थोड़ा समझ आ गया मतलब थोड़ा ही आना चाहिए 80%.
The initials Jeep.
This is a 3 blue one. Okay. Cool. 77%. कोई इशू नहीं है. This is not even in syllabus. ये तो हम ऐसे ही detour पे चले गए. But hopefully you were coding. So let's get back on track. Advanced people, feel free to leave. I'm also leaving in 20 minutes also. I have a wedding to attend. Simple people, sorry, not simple people, like beginner folks, let's try to code this. I gave you a boilerplate code. सबसे पहली चीज अपने को क्या करनी है यहाँ पे? Let's add the database schemas and the database models. उससे पहले start MongoDB locally. मेरे पास तो रन कर ही रहा है. I have MongoDB running locally. Some of you might not have it running locally. So you guys should first have a MongoDB URL ready. उसके बाद ही you will be able to test it. You can get one on cloud.mongodb.com or you can start it locally. I have started it locally. So for me, it is working locally. सबसे पहले I need to design the schemas. Best ये रहता है भाई. Create the skeletons, create the schema, then fill in the skeletons. Best approach to write a backend project. Create the skeletons, create the schema. Schema कैसे create करेंगे? We will import model and schema from mongoose. We have covered this in the past. Hopefully, I don't have to re-explain it. What this is? This is the database model. Sorry, this is your database schema. Structure कैसा दिख रहा है? Const user model equal to model or new model. I don't know, one of these two. New model. We will have a username which will be a string. Password which will be a string. Now we can get more fancy and we can add yani type is string and unique is true. We can do this also. अब क्या होगा? If the user already exists, database में दूसरी entry आप नहीं भेज पाओगे. You will not be able to send a second entry to the database from your server. You can still go to MongoDB Compass and add a new entry with the same username. MongoDB is schemaless. You can't really enforce constraints like uniqueness here. You might actually, but this will not do that. This will not enforce the constraint at the database level. यहाँ पे जाके I can add a new entry. You know, add data and then add a new entry over here with the same username. But at least your Node.js server will check क्या before I create, I want to make sure इस username का कोई exist करता है कि नहीं. This uniqueness constraint will enforce Mongoose to block the request. MongoDB will block, Mongoose will block the request agar your user already exists. That is what this uniqueness constraint will help you with. What do you do after you create the model? Do you remember? I think you get the schema first. Const user schema equal to new schema. User model. I think they're ulta. MongoDB, sorry, Mongoose. I mean, I don't use it, which is, I was about to say I always get confused, but I don't always get confused. I rarely use Mongo. So let's see, you create a model first. Yeah, you create a model later. You create a schema first, I think. Yeah. So let's quit this new schema. There you go. And यहाँ पे, let me write user schema. This will be user model. Looking at the docs, I can't open Brave. It'll make my machine go slower. Looking at the docs one more time. I'm sure you guys already know how to write schemas and models. I just need to recap it for myself also.
Line number 9.
Line number 9. यहाँ पे?
New model.
Thank you.
Just a model.
There we go. Cool. Thank you, sir. So you first create the schema. Structure कैसा दिख रहा है? You then create the model. क्या इस schema का model का नाम user होगा? I want to create a user table in MongoDB. यहाँ पे user दिखना चाहिए और users दिखना चाहिए जो आपको लिखना है. That is how you define the schema in the model. Model also needs to be exported. Here comes another new thing. अभी तक we were doing exports like this. Module dot exports equal to something. ये सिंटेक्स से हम एक्सपोर्ट कर रहे थे. इंपोर्ट कैसे कर रहे थे? रिक्वायर सिंटेक्स से हम इंपोर्ट कर रहे थे. Until now, we were doing const express equal to require express. And we were exporting like this. But now we are importing with the new fancy import syntax. And hence we will also export using the fancy export syntax. ये रहा यूजर स्कीमा, ये रहा यूजर मॉडल. स्कीमा में यूजर नेम और पासवर्ड है. मॉडल में मैंने बताया कि नाम ये हो. दिस इज द नेम ऑफ माय कलेक्शन. दैट इज ऑल यू नीड फॉर द साइन अप एंड द साइन इन एंडपॉइंट. ये दोनों तो बन जाएंगे. लेट्स गो बैक हियर. You should add Zod validation here. I'm not adding it, but you should add it. I'll also add it at the end of the class if we have time. क्या करेंगे हम? Const username equal to rec.body.username. Const password equal to rec.body.password. Now I will do what? I will do a user model, which I will import from ./db. User model dot create. It's not giving me types. Would have been nice if it gave me types. But I'm missing something. But अब मुझे पता नहीं कि create होता है कि insert होता है. This is not giving me the types I was hoping for. Probably because I missed something here.
Model is not like it is just a method and small m, not a capital. There is no need of instantiating.
Oh, this?
Yeah, and m should be small.
You're saying that give me the types? This?
Yeah, import.
Yeah, I think, yeah, you use, okay, let's try it. What are the inputs to this? Name पहले है. And then the schema, name and then schema. Let's see, does this give me the types? Dot. There we go. This gives me the types. Exactly. This is great. Thank you, Akash. Bounty for you. If you weren't employed, haha. You are employed. Bounty. All right. Now I am getting the types also. The other one also worked. But उसमें types नहीं आ रहे थे. If I use small model, give it the name and the schema, now I am getting the types also. That is super helpful. Now I know what I have to do यहाँ पे. I can see a create collection, create index. I just want to create. अब data कैसे जाएगा? I think directly यहीं पे आएगा. User name, as you can see, ये भी बता रहा है कि user name यहाँ पे भेजो. And then, of course, the password. What should you do over here? You should hash the password. These are both to-dos that you should do. We have done it many times. You get the time, we'll do it here also. But that's enough to create a new user in the users table. Async await. After that is done, rest.json message user signed up. Now I've not added a bunch of things. कि अगर user already exists करता है तो ये crash कर जाएगा. If it crashes, I should return a different status code. If you remember, slides में लिखा है कि you have to return a 411 status code अगर यहाँ कुछ कमी है. You have to return a 403 status code if the user already exists. I'm not doing that. If the user with the same username comes, process will crash. You get a 500 status code. So we should fix that. These are all to-dos you should do. That's for creating a user. And then signing in. Signing in में क्या होगा? Again, const username equal to rec.body.username. So let's try it out first. Then we'll do sign in because sign in maybe we have to use JWT also. So some people might get overwhelmed here. Sign up endpoint hopefully works. What is one thing that is left? Two things actually. पहली चीज app.use express.json. I am expecting the body to be JSON, so I have to do app.use express.json. What is the second thing that is missing? I forgot to do a mongoose.connect. So either in this file or in db.ts, I can do a mongoose.connect and put the MongoDB URL here, which for me looks something like import mongoose. For me, since I'm running it locally, it looks something like MongoDB://mongo localhost :2, something like this. I'll just copy the full one from here. I think this is fine. What was it called? Brainly. Yeah, there you go. MongoDB://localhost :27017. Let me copy this and just make sure I have the same thing over here. That looks right. /Brainly means कि मुझे Brainly database में डालना है. Oh, I stopped Mongo locally. There we go. Now, if I try to connect via Compass, it connects. It doesn't have Brainly collection over database. Brainly collect database over here. Let me now start my application. To recap, I have created a user schema. I have created a user's model. I've exported the user's model. I've imported it over here. User model in index.ts. And I've said कि जब भी बंदा sign up कर रहा है, get their username, get their password, put this entry in the database, return to the user. User schema पे I have already added a constraint कि unique is true. अगर सेम यूजर नेम का फिर से आया, द प्रोसेस विल सॉर्ट ऑफ क्रैश और इट विल थ्रो एन एरर. लेट्स सी डज दैट हैपन. हाउ डू आई स्टार्ट माई टाइपस्क्रिप्ट प्रोजेक्ट? मेरा टाइपस्क्रिप्ट प्रोजेक्ट चल रहा है. हाउ डू आई स्टार्ट इट? कॉमन थिंग यू शुड डू is in package.json, you should add a build script. I repeat, you should add a build script. यार मेरा प्रोजेक्ट ऐसे बिल्ड होगा. tsc-b to build the project. A start script. यार जब वो बिल्ड हो गया, then I have to call node disk/index.js to start it, and then a dev script. जहां पे usually people use nodemon. Nodemon is a little weird with TypeScript. So for now, we'll do npm run build followed by npm run start. 3 कमांड लिखी है मैंने यहाँ पे. डोंट गेट ओवरवेल्म्ड, बट दिस इज कॉमन थिंग यू विल डू बाद में. व्हाट आई हैव सेड इज, यार एक कमांड है टू बिल्ड द प्रोजेक्ट, कन्वर्ट द प्रोजेक्ट फ्रॉम टाइपस्क्रिप्ट टू जावास्क्रिप्ट. लेट्स सी डज दैट वर्क. अभी यहाँ पे सिर्फ एक सोर्स फोल्डर है. देयर इज ओनली अ सोर्स फोल्डर हियर. व्हेन आई रन npm run build, it should run tsc-p. Let's see. npm run build. It ran tsc-p. And I see a dist folder over here. Seems to be working. When I run npm run start, it runs node disk/index.js. That seems to be working. npm run dev होता है कि ड्यूरिंग डेवलपमेंट जब आप काम कर रहे हो लोकली, you want to build and start, build and start, build and start. So that is why locally you usually use npm run dev. I've added an alias for nd, which is why nd runs npm run dev, which runs first build and then start. And that is starting my server over here. I don't know how. Okay, mongoose.connect. I forgot to listen. App.listen 3000. I need to listen on a specific port. तभी तो HTTP server वहां चलेगा. That is one line I missed. Let's try npm run dev one more time. Let's go to Postman. Let's try to send a request to sign up. देखते हैं sign up चल रहा है कि नहीं. अब ये चीज ऐसी है जो ऐसे होनी चाहिए. You should be able to do this like this way, not like this, but like easily by now, because we've done this a few times. Localhost colon 3000. The body that I'm going to send is going to have a username, a password 123123. Let's send. I am sending it to HTTPS. I need to send it to HTTP. Send again. Error. Cannot post /. What is the endpoint? API/v1/signup. Let's try it one more time. User signed up. 200 status code सब सही है. When the first user entry went, hopefully it reached the database. Let's see. If I open the database, refresh, I see Brainly. If I look at the users table, users collection, I see an entry over here. सब सही है. चल गई हमारी CRUD application. Step 2. Let's try to send it for the same user again. हट गया. Socket hang up. What does that mean? सर्वर ही फट गया. Why does server crash? Because हमने कहा था uniqueness constraint है. As you can see, says Mongo error received. सर्वर ही गिर गया. तो what should you do here? You should make sure कि जो भी आपकी risky statements हैं, you put them inside a try catch. Maybe the whole thing put inside a try. कि भाई try for this code to run. And अगर नहीं चलता है, which will most probably happen because username same है, then tell the user कि यार कुछ फट गया. User already exists. Most probably तो error यही होगा. This call can fail for other reasons also. Database is down, not able to connect to the database, timeout हो गया. But most probably अगर ये फट रहा है, that means this username already exist करता है. You can also inspect E over here and ensure कि जब वो हो रहा है तभी आप ये मैसेज भेजो, otherwise ये मैसेज ना भेजो. But if you add just this much, then your backend won't crash anymore, which is good. The backend shouldn't crash अगर यूजर ने आपको सेम यूजरनेम फिर से भेज दिया है. Present हरकत 1, user signed up, send it again. It sends user already exists, gives me back a 411. यही तो चाहिए था. नोशन डॉक में यही तो लिखा था. स्टेटस कोड शुड बी 200 if सब सही है. 200 अगर सब सही है, that is coming. अगर वो फट गया, 411 should be the status code. So sign up endpoint is working. Can we do the sign in endpoint really quickly? जल्दी से कर रहा हूँ. उसके बाद मैं जल्दी से वो वाला करूंगा endpoint, content वाला, because that is important. Password. What do we have to do? check the password in the database user exist करता है कि नहीं. So const user equal to or existing user equal to user model dot find first. Find one, find one, जहाँ पे यूजर नेम ये है एंड पासवर्ड ये है, इसको अवेट करना है. This should be an async function. Now if existing user exists, तब क्या करना है? Sign the JWT return to the user. So const token equal to JWT dot sign user की जो ID है, which in our case is existing user dot underscore ID, and let's say a random JWT password I'm putting at the top of my file. Const JWT underscore password 123, some random string. That is how I'm going to sign my token that I will return to the user. Rest of JSON token is this specific token right here. उस token में encoded क्या है? The user's ID is encoded over there. That is the token that I sent to the user. If they exist, if this username password is incorrect, then I say status 403.json message incorrect credentials. This will return incorrect credentials. This will return a token. Let's see, does that happen? थोड़ा जल्दी हो गया. Get the username and password from the user. Check if there is a user with that username and password in the database. If it exists, return them the JSON web token. Return them the token over here that you've created. Else return them message incorrect credentials. Let's restart the application. Let's go to Postman. Let's sign up as a new user. Raman. Let's sign in as the same user. I get back a token. Let's sign in with the wrong credentials. I don't get back a token. So sign in endpoint is working. What is the third endpoint? Create content. बना लोगे? Create content तो बना लोगे? Assignment for today. Create content endpoint. Simple. You have to take 4 inputs. Put an entry in the contents table. उससे पहले you have to create a contents table. So const content schema equal to new schema. Content में क्या क्या था? There is title, which is let's say just string. There is अब मुझे नोशन लॉक में जाना पड़ेगा. Link, which is string, and there is tags, which is a tag reference if you remember. Tags is an array of type object ID mongoose dot types dot object ID and reference. It refers a tag table. अभी हमने ये बनाया नहीं. We have to make the tag table. इसके बाद वो बना दूंगा. But this refers to the tag table and then user ID, which refers to the user table. So user ID is type. Again, it is an object ID and it refers to the user table. And you can add a constraint here. Okay, it should be required. इसके बिना भी काम चल सा जाएगा, but it's good to have this constraint. I have created the content schema. I will create the content model next. Export const content model equal to a new model with content as the name of the model, and then content schema. Something like this. That is the content model that I've exported from here. User model is done. Content model is done. This refers to a tags table. वो भी बना नहीं है, पर ठीक है, that is fine. बना लेंगे. Go back to index.ts. Content बनेगा कैसे? Const, whatever, link equal to rec.body.link. Const type equal to rec.body.type. और क्या क्या है? लिंक है, टाइप है. मान लो टैग्स अभी इग्नोर कर रहे हैं. यूजर आईडी कहां से आएगी? हाउ विल द यूजर आईडी कम? थ्रू अ मिडलवेयर, राइट? I can add a middleware over here. I should add a middleware over here. I should create a auth middleware, a user middleware. Export const user middleware. अब जिसको नहीं समझ आ रहा है, you should go through the middleware class. Rec res next. I should give them the types. इसकी टाइप होगी request, which comes from express. इसकी टाइप होगी response, which comes from express. इसकी टाइप होगी next, which is the next function that again comes from express. यहाँ पे हम क्या करेंगे? Const header equal to get the user's authorization header. मान लो authorization header में टोकन है सीधा सीधा. the token is just put in the authorization header. So what will I do? I will decode the token. अभी जिसको नहीं समझ आ रहा, you haven't gone through authentication. We have a proper class on authentication. You should go through. Const decoded equal to jwt.decode verify the authorization header and the secret. अब secret कहाँ है? index.ts में, यहाँ पे. Let me just copy and paste it over here. I want to avoid a circular dependency. Index.ts will import middleware.ts. और अगर मैं इसको export कर दूं यहाँ से and I import it in middleware.ts, there will be a circular dependency. They're really bad. Index.ts shouldn't import middleware.ts if middleware.ts is importing index.ts, which is why I am not exporting this password. I'm duplicating it, which is bad. You should put it in a third file. You should put it in a third file called config.ts. यहाँ से export it and import it everywhere. Import JWT password from /config. Same thing you should do in middleware.ts. अब सही है. Now what do you have to do? Verify it with this JWT password. Make TypeScript happy for now. And if decoded is true, then you should do rec.userid equal to decoded dot. How did we encode it? As ID. So this will give you some errors. TypeScript will tell you कि यार आप request object पे user ID नहीं डाल सकते. Figure out how to fix this. We have discussed this in the past. How can you override the types of the express request object? अभी के लिए I'll do a TS ignore. ताकि ये TypeScript error चला जाए. Error is fine. Error सही चीज कह रहा है. Error आपको बता रहा है कि request तो express का object है. इस पे ये user ID 123 जो भी आप की डालना चाह रहे हो doesn't exist. आप कुछ गलत कर रहे हो. हम कर रहे हैं sort of. We are violating some rules of TypeScript. So either we should change the type of this request object, or we need to TS ignore this. I know what I'm doing. Ignore my error. I am TS ignoring. And then what do you do? You call the next function. यार अब अगला middleware call कर दो. But एक अगर user name अगर header में input नहीं है, the input is not there in the header, then you do a rest.status 403.json. You are not logged in, something like this. This is returning a 403 कि तुम logged in नहीं हो. This is returning a, this will forward it to the next part in the middleware. इस user middleware को मैं कहाँ import करूंगा? I will import it in here. कि जो content endpoint है, it needs to be authenticated. It needs to be authenticated. पहले user middleware में जा. अगर बंदे ने token भेजा है, if they have sent the token, then the control should reach here. Now we get the link, the type, and simply do whatever. Content model dot create link type user ID is rec dot user. अगर यहां तक कंट्रोल आया है, I repeat, tags, something like this. अगर यहां तक कंट्रोल आया है, that means it went through the user middleware. And यहाँ पे user ID was set to something. So I can ignore this rec.userid even though it will tell me user ID तो exist ही नहीं करती. Property user ID does not exist on request. But I know कि मैंने वो थोड़ा उधर TS ignore कर दिया था इससे अभी. I did not override the types of the global request object. That is what I should do. I should override the types of this guy. अभी के लिए मैंने यहाँ भी TS ignore कर दिया. तो भाई यहाँ भी TS ignore करना पड़ेगा. User ID is rec.userid. We insert it. Make this an async function. And then simply return. सिंपल है, इसमें कुछ अजीब था, एकदम सिंपल है भाई. This lets you add the content. Cool. Let's see if does it work. If I restart the application, npm run dev. If I sign in, it gives me my JWT. If I send a request to /content with a title, Notion doc about Trump, and a link which let's say is google.com/trump.pdf, and send an authorization header. I have to send an authorization header. मैंने साइन इन किया था, मुझे बताना है कि ये मैं हूं हरकीरत, दिस इज माय टोकन. Then it says content added. If I go to Postman, if I go to MongoDB Compass, रिफ्रेश, आई सी कॉन्टेंट्स टेबल भी आ गया, इसमें ये भी आ गया, यूजर आईडी भी है। यूजर आईडी इज द सेम एज यहाँ टेबल में जो मेरी यूजर की आईडी थी। तो आई बीन एबल टू पॉपुलेट द कॉन्टेंट्स टेबल, आई बीन एबल टू पॉपुलेट द यूजर्स टेबल। डू वी अंडरस्टैंड दिस? लेट्स डू अ पोल। थोड़ा तेज हो गया। आई विल पुश द अपडेट और द प्रोग्रेस इन द न्यू ब्रांच एंड देन वी कैन गो फ्रॉम देयर। अरे सिंपल है क्या इतना? ठीक है, फिर डिफिकल्ट चीज कर लेते हैं भाई जल्दी से, अगर इतना समझ आ ही गया तो, क्योंकि कल से पहले वी हैव टू फिनिश द बैकएंड। So the difficult thing only after this is going to be basically the references that we have added. We haven't really used them. We don't need to use them here. जब बंदा अपना content मांगेगा, we can simply do user middleware and we can return const user ID equal to like dot user ID. When the user is asking for their whatever content, we can simply do const content equal to content model dot find where user ID is this user ID. Simple as that. Return them the content. Something like this. This is great, but there is one property of relationships we can use over here. So let me first go back to Postman, send the request again. I've added two contents. Let me try to get content. And when I do, it returns me my content. सब सही है। यार कि आपने trump.pdf के दो doc बनाए हैं. But the problem is it gives me my user ID. What if I want to see my username also here? यार जो डॉक्स आ रहे हैं उनके यूजर की इंफॉर्मेशन भी चाहिए मुझे. व्हाट इफ इन द फ्यूचर वी सपोर्ट समथिंग लाइक अदर पीपल कैन एडिट एंड ऐड थिंग्स इन माय ब्रेन. आई रिपीट, अदर पीपल कैन एड इट इन माय ब्रेन. तो यहाँ पे एक और प्रॉपर्टी होगी एडेड बाय, विच विल बी अ यूजर आईडी, विच विल बी अ फॉरेन की. पर जब मैं यूआई में देखना चाहता हूँ, व्हेन आई वांट टू गो टू द यूआई एंड सी दैट कार्ड, आई शुड सी एडेड बाय रमन, इवन दो इट इज इन माय ब्रेन, it was added by someone else. So in this single query, given user ID is a foreign key, how can I get the user's name also? यार अगर नाम भी आ जाता तो मजा आ जाता, because then I don't have to send a requery. जब मेरा UI होगा, I will build a UI, I will see those cards on the UI, I will hit this endpoint, it will return me the user ID, and let's say we add authors in the future, कि किसने ये Notion doc add किया, someone else is allowed to add Notion docs to your brain. So there will be an author ID here. There will not be an author name over there. So what can I do? Given we know that user ID is a foreign key and author ID is a foreign key, I have clearly mentioned here that user ID is a foreign key. Let's say मैं author ID भी add कर देता हूँ. Something like this. ठीक है? I have clearly said it refers to the user's table. So what I can do is call dot populate user ID. यार इसके ना original items भी ले आइयो please. Populate the user's ID as well. Return that to the front end. Let's see, does it work? Let's restart. क्या चेंज किया मैंने कहा get this and populate the user ID. If I go here, click on send, I see user ID gets populated. I see the ID, the name, the password. Is that a problem? अगर कल को मैंने author ID डाल दिया तो I will get the author's name. Great. I will get their password also on the front end. So I want to populate, but some parts. I don't want to populate the whole thing. I repeat, I want to populate the user ID, but I don't want their password. दूसरे बंदे का पासवर्ड नहीं, अपना भी पासवर्ड नहीं देखना मुझे. I just want my name, ताकि मैं UI पे दिखा पाऊँ कि this was created by हरकीरत, this was created by Raman. So how can I just select password? If you look at the types of this guy, there you go. The second argument here is select. कि इसमें से क्या क्या select करना है? I can say I just want to select the user. I can write this also, username and password, or I can write just the username. और कुछ select नहीं करना भाई. Let me restart. Let me send the request, and I only see the username now. अब सही है. So that is how you use references. In actuality, मतलब help यहाँ करते हैं references आपको. Even though MongoDB में references are a very vague thing. You can't enforce foreign key relationships. Your database, I can go to the database and write something random over here. User ID, कोई random key, convert it to a string. So I haven't been able to convert it to a string. Update हो गया update. I wasn't able to update or enforce foreign keys at a database level because MongoDB is schemaless. MongoDB चाहता है कि एकदम flexible रहूं मैं, तो you can't enforce it here. यहाँ पे बंदा जो भी डाल सकता है, but you can enforce it here. यहाँ पे अगर तुम कुछ गलत डालने की कोशिश करोगे फट सकता है. यहाँ पे अगर आप पॉपुलेट कराओगे वो पॉपुलेट करके ढूंढ के बना देगा. तो दैट इज हाउ यू इवन दो यहाँ पे भी मतलब इफ यू गो थ्रू दिस इन द नोशन डॉक आई एडेड सम एक्स्ट्रा थिंग्स, यू शुड गो थ्रू देम. Even in Mongoose, it's not enforced very well. In MongoDB, it is not enforced. It is schemaless. ये database, when we learn PostgreSQL very soon, तो उसमें हम पहली चीज ये पढ़ेंगे कि MongoDB में ये कमी है. One of those कमी being कि you can't enforce things at a database level. You can't say कि यार ये random नहीं हो सकती, क्योंकि अगर ये random होगी, then your database is highly corrupted. There is the user ID जो exist ही नहीं करती है. There is a content जहाँ पे user ID is for something that doesn't exist only. So that is bad. So you know. But you can't enforce this in MongoDB. You can enforce this the other place. Can you finish the rest of the endpoints, guys? Delete a content. बहुत simple, 1 second में बन जाएगा. Only thing is you have to make sure user own करता है उसे. So you know, don't delete someone else's content. So ये तो मैं लिख देता हूँ. चलो, rec dot const content id equal to rec dot body dot content id. Await content schema dot delete. Where you know content id is this. Is this good enough? No, you have to make sure user also owns this specific content. I shouldn't be allowed to delete someone else's content. I should only be allowed to delete my content. तो अगर मैं कोई content ID भेज रहा हूं, हम चेक कर रहे हैं कि content ID ये है और user ID ये है. This is the person that owns this specific, you know, whatever content. उसे अपना ही delete कर सकता हूं, मैं किसी और का नहीं delete कर सकता. That's the delete endpoint. Share endpoint और ये बनाओगे, try it out. नहीं होता तो कल तो बना ही लेंगे, but like should be simple enough from here. How do you create a share endpoint? How do you create a share link endpoint? यहाँ पे you will have to update this as well, the schema as well. You will have to add tags also. You should add tags also. You should add a shareable link also and try to finish it. Okay. Let me push the current progress. And the assignment is going to be, you know, finishing it off. All right. We'll do 3-minute Q&A, then we'll call it because I have to rush now. All right. Chat is open, guys. 3 minutes. Any questions? All right. Everyone to ਹੱਸਦੇ ਚਿਹਰਿਆਂ ਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਇਹ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਨੂੰ ਤਕਲੀਫ ਨਹੀਂ ਹੁੰਦੀ, ਉਹਦਾ ਮਤਲਬ ਹੁੰਦਾ ਹੈ ਕਿ ਉਹਨਾਂ ਦੇ ਤਕਲੀਫਾਂ ਨਾਲ ਡੀਲ ਕਰਨਾ ਆਉਂਦਾ.
Everyone to AK.
Everyone to AK. Okay. DB.TS doesn't have TS. What do you mean DB.TS doesn't have TS? Could you repeat the question? A doubt over here. Another here बहुत तेज था. एंड में तेज हो गया. आई थिंक शुरू में काफी स्लो ही था. एंड दिस इज नथिंग वी हैवंट कवर्ड ऑलरेडी. ऑल्सो पहले उसके बाद 90 85-90% कुछ यस बोल रहे, 93% ने यस बोला था. तो गो थ्रू द एग्जिस्टिंग वीडियोस, ट्राई टू डू इट, हो जाएगा. Maybe it's lack of practice, but if it didn't, tell me. I'll do it again. This is a very simple CRUD application. Only thing was populates that we learned, relationships that we learned. उस पे वीडियो नहीं आई अभी तक. As soon as I add a video on it, hopefully, you know, that becomes easy as well. All right. Now I'm going to look at the docs. Superbase has a vector database. Remind me of a project. Remind me of a project that I made unique links for every user to ask questions. And exactly, very nice. But it's already here. Something else. Try searching for Amrit Rai in users table. Amrit Rai. Search. Oh, you can ask questions to a random person and see their questions answered. Very nice. I know this. Okay, they also have vector database support. Seems like there's this blog post that will take you through how you can build something similar, chat to a PDF. Well, how does a frameworks library? How does one make a frameworks library from the ground up? Like Stats and a Turbo repo. Yeah. So start smaller. Build Express. Go through the code base of Express. You'll be surprised. It's a literal wrapper on top of HTTP. If you go through the code base of Express, it's just, and it's so popular. Mern stack, uska naam hi rakh diya bhai, Mern stack. But if you go through, you know, whatever, there's just 5 lines of code, 5 lines over here, and most of it is, you know, very simple. For example, the JSON that they export is nothing but body parser.json. किसी और library को use कर लिया, and you know, everything else over here. How do you create an application? It's just a function. The const app equal to express that you do is just a function. Things like these. So, start small. Creating a UI library is also easy. Creating a monorepo framework is different. Then you have to understand the build process. You have to understand how do you convert, even though it is not a monorepo framework, turborepo is something else. It is more of a build framework. But whatever it is, that is slightly harder to build. HTTP server, very simple. Hono itni jaldi uthta hai. Hono is also, not too many lines of code. Just got rid of the things that are native to Node.js, so that it works on various runtimes. So, that probably is easier. Start small. Create a simple HTTP server library. Make it popular. Then, build more on top. But to still express, yeah, you're right. It is sort of it is a subset of Hono. Hono does a lot of things that these guys don't. So yes, it should be adopted. But why do people use PHP? Well, it's adopted. वो घुस गई ना हर जगह. More developers know it. I know Express. तो अपनी कंपनी में force करूँगा Express. मुझे नहीं पढ़ना हो. I know PHP. I don't want a new stack. So that's why it's adopted. That's why. Exactly. It's so simple. Why don't we build it? We should build it. So lazy. Or are people exactly so lazy? That is right. Why do so many companies have so like? Why is SAP developer such a highly paid role? Because SAP is used. That software is everywhere now. So that's where a lot of demand is. We need SAP developers. सारा पुराना software उस पे ही है. That is why. Interesting questions. I made a similar project. Oh, nice. Details, submit, clear session. Very cool. Looks good. So if I had the time, I would have looked at it. I have to rush. Someone wrote the code. That looks right. One second, guys. Sorry about that. Aggregate query for business dot push match regex search value options. आई भाई साहब ये क्या लिख दिया? If you want to search over a name, search value colon mens. Exact response is thing, but result. This is the table in MongoDB. Please guide me how to do it. Okay, seems like you are trying to search for something like mens on every row, right? Is that what you're trying to do? Aggregate query for business dot push match name is regex search value or empty string. Options is I. ये तो मुझे नहीं समझ आया. ये मुझे समझ आ रहा है. Okay, what you're trying to do is, मैं quickly लिख ही देता हूँ ये. Something like this. Okay. Let's say I want to search for a content with a specific title. So I can do this, slash content slash title. Pay I will do where user ID is this and title matches regex search value, which let's say we take as body. Search value equal to rec dot query dot search value. Something like this. Let's see, does it work? Slash title question mark search value is, let's say, what did we have here in my contents? Let's say it's empty for now. तब तो सारे आ जाएंगे. Let me start the backend. Oh, ND. Oh, sorry, it's regex. So I probably need to send star. Cannot use condition with a string. Where title match. All right. How to do regex search in MongoDB. जल्दी जल्दी देखेंगे. Field reg. अच्छा match करने की जरूरत नहीं है. Something like. I'll have to see what match is as well before I answer your question. But let me quickly try this. ये भी चल रहा है कि नहीं? At least the backend started. Let's send a request. Failed again. Reg expression qualifier follow a repeatable item. Quantify does not follow a repeatable item. What is a good regex? Search value, star, search. I want to look at your question. I'm just short on time. Let me try to. Okay, this works. Regex कैसे लिखते हैं? Regex, simple regex. Let's see. Give me a nice regex here. Okay, this regex was wrong. GM. Let's say regex is GM star. ये सही है. There we go. So let me send a regex that looks like. What do we have in the contents अभी? Oh, ये मैंने change कर दी थी user ID. Let me quickly. Let me add content जल्दी से. Push content for this user which has body that looks like this. Notion. Doc about वो title that looks like this. तो Notion star मैं search करूँगा अब यहाँ पे. Equal to Notion star. Let's try that. Content is still empty. Let's any star. MongoDB. Go to contents. Search किस पे कर रहा था मैं? लिंक पे कर रहा था कि टाइटल पे ही कर रहा था? What does title look like? टाइटल यहाँ आ ही नहीं रहा. पता नहीं क्या कर दिया मैंने. I forgot to put the title in the database. Content ID. How do you post content? Type title. Anyways, what am I trying to achieve with this? मान लो that works. What was your question now? Aggregate query for business.push. This is like a bunch of queries that you're adding. Match name, regex search value, option I. ये नहीं मुझे समझ आया. Option I का मतलब क्या है यहाँ पे? This I understand. Title will have a special. If title will have a special character, if you mean name will have a special character, this first row, where is name? I would assume this is name. If the title will have a special character, it will not work. I want to search over name. You are probably asking, जो मुझे समझ आया. Okay, firstly, you're trying to do a regex, which probably makes sense. There's probably an easier way to do it. Actually, that might not be. You're right. I think this is how you do search in MongoDB, right? This is the table in MongoDB. आपको name पे search करना है. You want to search on the name. कि किसी ने MEN लिखा तो उसको वो वाली रो मिल जाए. Is that correct? Yes. So this looks perfect. That's sort of very close to what I did. मैंने क्या किया यहाँ पे वही चीज की. But it has special characters. Let's see. Okay, like double quotes. Okay. Let's put double quotes over here. Like I can't think of a reason why that shouldn't work. But let's put इस link में let's put special characters like double quotes. ठीक है यहाँ पे Trump double quote. Or let's just start it with double quotes only. Double quotes google.com double quotes. ठीक है. Now let me try to search. Let me quickly go to the endpoint that I had created. Search value. And यहाँ पे title की जगह let me do it on the link. I have to rush इसके बाद वैसे. And let's see if this works or not. Special character star. If I send a request here, it does not return a value. So you might just be right here. Okay, it is not working on special characters, and I will just Google like you would. Special character search regex MongoDB. And try to figure out what is happening here. You need to escape $by/. So let's try that. Special character को हम slash से escape कर देंगे. Send that request. Still did not happen. So I don't think this is it. But try to go through that issue. If it doesn't happen, take my ping 100x Twitter. Take my number from Akash. DM me in what do you call it? On WhatsApp, and then I'm happy to look at it. It sounds like an interesting problem. I'll also learn something from it. All right. Sorry, I have to rush. Wasn't able to look at it. Abhi. Men's is not equal to men's. Oh, अब समझ आया. You want to do similarity search. आप कह रहे हो बंदा तो यहाँ मेन सर्च करेगा. You want कि ये वाली वो आ जाए. हाँ. This is very difficult. You can't do it in an SQL database. For that, you need Elasticsearch is one such thing. You need to do a different kind of search. मैं नाम भूल गया उसका. Someone will tell you in chat. Akash open chat. But similarity search नहीं कर सकते database में. There might be a way, but like it does exact search only. That is why you need table things like vector databases or elastic search is an easier way to solve what you're trying to solve. तो similar कुछ दिखता हुआ दे देगा आपको, similar search कर देगा, but MongoDB में तो आपको exact चीज ही चाहिए. Or database में generally, there might be a way to do it, but not that I know from the top of my head. All right. Okay. I'm also trying to bring a Web3 cohort. I've watched Web3 cohort videos, but never coded them. To me, Web3 cohort के सारे वीडियो skip करके सीधा कल से वीडियो फ्रेश स्टार्ट कर दूं, नहीं कर पाओगे. Like Solidity you might be able to. Yeah, you can do EVM only, but कुछ कॉन्सेप्ट्स आएंगे तो keep doing other things on the side. अभी जॉब पे फोकस करना है, इसलिए टाइम नहीं मिल रहा है. I want to get into this thing. I have achievement of GSOC. I have GSOC already, and but not have a project. That's fine. I think GSOC is good enough above any other project. वो project बहुत ज़्यादा मैटर करता है over anything else. बाकी to answer Web3 question, but build projects also. I'm not saying मत करो, but हाँ, to answer Web3 question कि हाँ do it भाई, मतलब you might have to go back again and again and do it. It might not be enough कि you are just doing अब के आगे वाली videos. You will need to go back and finish everything before. Pretty average, not able to click on this. इसके आगे कुछ हो नहीं रहा है. Pretty average UI, ये हो गया, all right. Cool guys. Sorry I have to rush. Have a wedding.